When you wanna talk about books, yeah, but don't wanna film a wrap-up. Might read a mystery, or maybe hashtag and recent reads. Yep, that's me. Hello, beautiful bookish people. Today is very exciting because we're going to be talking about some books that I've read recently. Ooh. So to kick it off, I have 1 2-star book, 2 3-star books, 1 4-star, and 1 5-star. So we're going to kind of start with the negative so we can build to that positivity, so I can leave you with some just overall good thoughts. So the first one I'm going to be talking about is the 2-star book, and it pains me to say this, but I did not like a Maggie Stiefvater book. This is Shiver by Maggie Stiefvater. Apparently, when she was very young, she got saved by wolves, and ever since then, she's kind of been obsessed with them, but not just all of them, one wolf specifically. And it's very weird. He kind of just shows up naked on her porch, and she's like, okay, and then starts the plot. But I wish there was one, because they just kind of stay in her bedroom, have good old classic teen conversations, maybe go on a date, and that's it. I will be the first to tell you that this book didn't age well. From the purple prose to the insta-love to Sam's impromptu songwriting. No, I'm not kidding. It just kind of reeks of that Twilight era, and not in a good way. I love Twilight, but this just didn't hit. I'm trying to figure out like how to describe this book. Imagine Cole Sprouse, but not Cole Sprouse, Jughead Jones, like that soft boy emo energy, and then put it into a book, and you have Shiver. If I had to assign this a Disney World ride, it would be Dumbo, because you're just going around with dumb conversations, thinking about other books / rides that you could go on, because when you're up, you're like, oh, hey, there's Space Mountain, could be rereading The Raven Boys. You just kind of come down after about 5 minutes of writing, and you're like, was that a waste of time? Maybe. Okay, I'm gonna move past the dumb metaphors. I'm just trying to like encapsulate how this book made me feel, and it was not good. If you want those Twilight vibes, just reread Twilight. I would not touch Shiver, which makes me really sad because I love Maggie Stiefvater. Okay, we're gonna move on. So the next thing I read this year was kind of a cult classic graphic novel. It's called Ghost World, and this follows 2 best friends, one named Rebecca and one named Thora Birch, and they are really mean. And they're kind of friends because they both seem to hate everything. So essentially they kind of just get together to rat on people. They make fun of this girl for being happy all the time. They make fun of this girl who was kind of mean to them in high school, who now has this like giant tumor on her face. So their friendship is like kind of nothing is off limits. They can rat on each other. They go in on each other so hard that it kind of forms this toxic friendships. And when I first read it, I hated it. I was like, why? What's the purpose of this graphic novel? They're so mean. I don't understand. There's no point to this story. And then like after I finished it, I started like thinking, okay, what is the purpose of this story? Why, like, is it called Ghost Town? Like, I was wondering, like, is it a euphemism for, like, the decaying of American culture? Is it a symbolic metaphor for these girls and their friendship? Are the ghosts in the town actually themselves? I don't know. Maybe. And so I just kind of started rethinking about, like, what would the purpose of this kind of story want to tell? Everything in this comic is kind of, like, drenched in irony. It kind of talks about ideal femininity, like Thora feels inadequate in comparison to Rebecca because Rebecca seems to always, you know, get the boys' attention, but Rebecca is insecure because Thora captures their attention. And so it's comparing the standards that we have for beauty, and it kind of all started clicking after I thought, like, why is it called Ghost Town? At the end of the day, I think this graphic novel is about teenage alienation, but I would never recommend it. So it's very hard to find that place for it because it's so harsh and stark at the beginning. But who's to say what I would grab out of it and what you would? So I'm kind of in the middle with 3 stars. How I thought maybe it could have depicted these themes in a better way, that it didn't make me so angry. But then again, it did make me do some like deep thinking. Anywho, I've been rambling on about this graphic novel for 9 minutes now. I'm gonna move on. So the next book I read was Eleanor Oilphant is Completely Fine. And this is about a 30-year-old woman who kind of just goes to work, comes back, doesn't really talk to anybody, and at the end of the day drinks a lot of vodka. But she's fine. Completely fine. I ended up giving this book 3 stars because it ended up letting me down in a lot of different aspects. It was very tricky for me to get invested in the plot, I guess, because it felt like a lot of meandering. I actually marked when I lost interest, and it was page 57, and I only regained interest after 200 more pages, so it just kind of felt like I didn't know why you were telling me these things. This book gets a lot of negative reviews based on the depiction of trauma. I personally didn't think there was anything bad with it because I liked it. I liked how Eleanor denied that she was struggling and like denied like the impact of events had on her. When Eleanor mentions trauma, it's said in a very like nonchalant way, where she'll say like, oh yeah, my boyfriend, he hit me, but it was my fault. Or like, yeah, my mom was pretty messed up, but it's fine. As if it had like no bearing effect on her when we all know that it does. I kind of liked how the traumatic backstory was just like a part of Eleanor and not her entire being, because I don't think that all works that like include trauma need that like in-depth analysis. It can kind of just be part of the character, because at the end of the day, people are not just their trauma. But that being said, this book treats trauma as a redeeming quality, explain away her misconduct, and I wasn't a fan of that. Yeah, or the author kind of has this idea that like those who have been through trauma are more worthy, and I didn't like that theme or that message. Overall, I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I understand why people connect to it and why people don't. But for me, I'm right in the middle. There's some very redeeming conversations I thought that happened, but some that I thought took away from the novel, which leaves me out of 3 stars.
Next book I want to talk about is Frankly in Love.
So Frankly in Love is about this guy named Frank Lee. Haha. Get it? Frank is in high school and his parents are kind of racist, because we kind of get this from the start, this backstory about his sister, and his sister kind of did everything right. She went to law school, did all the things that she was supposed to do, except she married a black guy. And so she has kind of been exiled from the family. That becomes quite troubling for Frank when he starts to fall for a white girl in class, which he knows his parents won't approve of. And so he gets his friend Joy, who's also Korean American, kind of do a little cover up and employ the fake dating trope. So this book is about a lot of things. It has a lot of things I love, like the fake dating trope, friends to lovers, but it also handles like familial bonds and economical situations, and it did not disappoint. Well, the one thing I think you should know about this book is it's not necessarily a rom-com. I think it's more of a coming of age story, which I think gets downplayed in especially like the marketing for this book, because I really loved how realistic it was. How for most of us, our first high school relationship isn't the lasting one. Listen, I love me some sensitive boys who talk about metaphors, and that's Frank. The only reason I knocked it down a star was kind of the treatment of Frank's best friends towards the very end of the book. There was something that was added in the 9th hour that I didn't appreciate. I didn't think it was handled super well. Anyway, I thought it was one of the better contemporaries that I've read in my contemporary reading experiences. This is one of the better ones, I would say, because it kind of perfectly encapsulates what YA is for. Understanding yourself, coming to terms with it, and kind of accepting it. And Frankly in Love does that. 4 out of 5 stars. Way to go, Frankly in Love. Now this next one is kind of a booktube classic, and I'm very late to the game, but that is A Darker Shade of Magic by Victoria Schwab. Now, Darker Shade of Magic, you probably know what it's about, but I'm going to give you a summary anyway. It's about this guy. That's it. I'm just kidding. So this takes place in this kind of fantastical fantasy slash urban fantasy where there's essentially 4 parallel Londons. And our main protagonist, Kel, can travel back and forth between all of the Londons. And now he is basically Hermes, but like good old Hermes, he's that chaotic mutual and has his own magical side business on the side. Kind of a bootlegger. Not kind of. He is one. And then one day, he smuggles the right thing from the wrong somebody, and the plot thickens. Now, I finished this within 2 days, which, for me, is quite the accomplishment because it takes me so long to get into fantasy. The way Schwab establishes characters and worlds, it's just, it goes down so easy. It's like silk. Schwab has this also like really nice writing style where it's not flowery but concise, and it's kind of like really pretty or beautiful in its conciseness because it only tells you what you need to know, which I always appreciate. I love the concept, but it's not going to surprise you. If you're familiar with fantasy plots or the 3-act structure, I don't know what to tell you except have fun on the journey. Here's the thing, I love basic fantasy. I'm a simple hoe. I love my Starbucks and Lee Bardugo. Like, if this book was a food, it would be avocado toast, you know? Just because it's simple and basic. But that doesn't mean I don't eat it up. I love avocado toast. It's good for you, plus it looks good on your Instagram. Like this book. But suffice to say, I loved it. I forgot how nice it is to escape into an entirely different world, because I usually stick with my contemporaries, but I forgot how appealing it is to get just sucked into an entirely different world. I acknowledge that it's not the best, but I read for enjoyment, so that's why we love her. Anywho, that concludes the recent reads. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Keep reading and all that jazz. When Eleanor mentions, sometimes I think I use too many weird metaphors. Lila is her own dichotomy, and I don't want to touch it. Because, let's boil it down, if she was in a Sarah J. Maas book, I would hate her. Whoa, hello. You want to talk about Eleanor Oilphant with me? Now this next one. Oh, I was showing you the book the entire time. To the danger of behind you. I don't know what to say about that. I am Confucian.